The call came during my weekly grocery shopping. Between the cereal aisle and frozen foods, my phone buzzed with news that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Ryan had been in an accident. Something about a crash on Highway 16, a delivery truck, and words that made my stomach drop. Critical condition. I abandoned my cart right there, leaving a trail of spilled coffee beans behind me as I rushed through the automatic doors. The January air bit at my face, but I barely noticed. My hands trembled as I fumbled with my car keys, dropping them twice before managing to unlock the door. "St. Mary's Hospital," the caller had said. "Come quickly." The drive was a blur of red lights and honking horns. I must have broken every speed limit, but the cops could write me all the tickets they wanted. My mind raced faster than my car, cycling through worst-case scenarios and desperate prayers. I'm Mia, and until today, I thought I had everything figured out. The perfect husband, the dream house in the suburbs, and in-laws who actually liked me, or at least pretended to. Now all of that was hanging by a thread, and I didn't even know how bad it was. The emergency room was a maze of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells. A nurse directed me to the surgical waiting area, where I found Linda, my mother-in-law, already pacing the floor. Her perfectly styled hair was disheveled, and her mascara had left dark streaks down her cheeks. "Oh, thank God you're here," she said, pulling me into a tight embrace that felt more controlling than comforting. "They won't tell me anything because I'm not his wife. You need to talk to them." Before I could respond, a doctor in blue scrubs approached us. "Mrs. Walker? I'm Dr. Chen. Your husband is stable but critical. The impact caused severe trauma to his lower spine. We're doing everything we can, but..." The words washed over me like ice water. Spinal injury, possible paralysis, months of rehabilitation. I nodded mechanically, trying to process it all while Linda's quiet sobs provided an unwanted soundtrack to my shock. "Can I see him?" I asked. "He's still unconscious from the surgery, but yes, briefly." Ryan looked small in the hospital bed, surrounded by beeping machines and clear tubes. His face was bruised but otherwise peaceful. I reached for his hand, and that's when I noticed his phone on the bedside table, cracked but still functioning. I don't know what made me pick it up. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe fate has a twisted sense of humor. The screen lit up with notifications from someone named Chloe. My thumb moved before my brain could stop it. "Baby, I miss you already. Last night was amazing. Can't wait until next week." The message preview ended there, but the timestamp showed 6:43 a.m., just hours before the accident. My world tilted sideways as I scrolled through more messages, each one more damning than the last. Photos, plans, promises. A whole secret life hidden behind a 4-digit passcode I shouldn't have known but did because Ryan had used the same one since college. Linda's voice startled me. "Mia, is everything all right?" I locked the phone quickly, sliding it back onto the table. "Fine," I lied, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. "Just checking if he had any important work meetings to cancel." She nodded, buying the lie as easily as I had bought Ryan's for God knows how long. Standing there, watching my husband breathe through machines while his lover's messages burned in my mind, something shifted inside me. The worry and fear didn't disappear, but they made room for something else, something darker and more determined. "I should call Tom," Linda said, referring to Ryan's father. "He's stuck in traffic." "You do that," I replied, my hand unconsciously clenching into a fist. "I'll stay with Ryan." And I would stay, long enough to understand exactly how deep this betrayal went, and long enough to make sure the price for it would be steep. 3 days after Ryan's accident, Linda insisted on hosting a family dinner. I sat at her pristine dining table, pushing overcooked pot roast around my plate while she detailed her plans to move into our house, temporarily, to help with Ryan's recovery. "It's the only sensible solution," she announced, cutting her meat with surgical precision. "Ryan will need round-the-clock care once he's released, and you can't possibly manage alone, dear." The fork in my hand trembled slightly. Every time she said, "dear," it felt like a paper cut to my soul. I glanced at Tom, who studied his plate with unusual intensity, avoiding everyone's eyes. "I appreciate the offer, Linda, but I've already researched home healthcare options." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "The insurance will cover most of it." Linda's knife scraped against her plate. "Insurance? That's so impersonal. Family should take care of family." "Like Ryan took care of his family?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Tom's head snapped up. Linda's knife clattered against her plate. What exactly does that mean? I forced a smile. Nothing. Just stressed about everything. The lie tasted bitter, like the wine I'd barely touched. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably another message from Samantha, checking on me. I'd told her everything yesterday, watching her face cycle through shock, rage, and finally, fierce protectiveness. Well, Linda continued, stress is exactly why you need help. I've already started packing some things. The guest room will do nicely. No. The word came out sharp enough to cut glass. I beg your pardon? I said no, Linda. Our house isn't suitable for 3 adults right now. We'll figure something else out. Linda's face tightened like a fist. Mia, I know you mean well, but you're being unreasonable. Ryan needs his mother. Ryan needs a lot of things, I muttered, pushing away from the table. Excuse me, I need some air. I escaped to their back porch, gripping the railing until my knuckles turned white. Behind me, I could hear Linda's voice rising and falling like a tide of complaints. Tom's lower tones responded, though I couldn't make out the words. The door opened and closed softly. I expected Linda ready for round 2, but it was Tom who appeared beside me. She means well, he said quietly. Does she? Or does she just need to control everything? Tom was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. How long have you known? My heart stopped. Known what? About Chloe. The world tilted sideways. I turned to face him, searching his weathered face for any sign of deception. You knew? He nodded slowly. Saw them together at a restaurant last month. Ryan claimed it was a business dinner, but he trailed off, shaking his head. And you didn't tell me? My voice cracked. Would you have believed me without proof? The question hit like a slap. No, I wouldn't have. I'd have defended Ryan, probably accused Tom of trying to cause trouble. The realization made me sick. Linda doesn't know, he added, and I won't tell her. That's your choice to make. The door opened again, and Linda's voice shattered the moment. There you are. Mia, we need to discuss the nursing schedule. I've already made some calls. Actually, Tom interrupted, I think we should head home. It's getting late, and Mia probably needs to get back to the hospital. Linda's protest died on her lips as Tom guided her back inside. I heard him murmuring something about letting me process things in my own way. Alone again, I pulled out my phone and opened Ryan's messages to Chloe. There were hundreds of them, dating back months. Each one felt like another nail in the coffin of my marriage. A new text appeared. From the hospital. Ryan was awake and asking for me. I looked back through the sliding glass door where Linda was gathering her things, still talking rapidly about care schedules and family duty. Tom caught my eye and gave me a slight nod. It was time to decide, keep playing the devoted wife while my rage ate me alive, or start writing my own ending to this story. I chose the latter. The hospital room felt smaller at night. Ryan lay propped up against white pillows, his face illuminated by the harsh fluorescent lights that made everything look sickly and unreal. I stood in the doorway, his phone heavy in my pocket, watching him tap away at the tablet Linda had brought him. You're late, he said, not looking up. Mom said you left their place hours ago. I closed the door behind me, careful not to make a sound. I had some research to do. About Chloe. His fingers froze mid-tap. The tablet slipped slightly, but he caught it. Who? Don't. My voice came out like steel. I have the messages, Ryan. All of them. The photos, too. He set the tablet aside, his movements deliberate. Mia, whatever you think you found, January 3rd. I pulled out his phone, reading from the screen. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about the way you... Stop. His face had gone pale beneath the bruises. Just stop. Why? You didn't stop. 8 months of messages, Ryan. 8 months of lies. He swallowed hard, his throat working. It wasn't serious. Just a mistake. A stupid mistake that what? That you were planning to end? I scrolled through the messages. Because these plans for a weekend in Miami next month suggest otherwise. I'm paralyzed, Mia. His voice cracked. Isn't that punishment enough? The laugh that burst from my throat surprised us both. Punishment? You think this is about punishment? I moved closer to his bed. This isn't karma, Ryan. This is just bad luck. Bad luck that happened to save me from wasting more years on a liar. Please. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. We can fix this. I'll end it with her. I'll do whatever you want. She already ended it. I watched his face carefully. I called her this morning. Pretended to be from Human Resources, checking on her emergency contact information. She was very helpful. Even mentioned she's taking that job in Seattle next month, the one you promised to help her get. Color flooded back into his face. You had no right to what? To know the truth? To understand that while I was planning our future, you were planning hers? It's not that simple. His hands gripped the bedsheets. I love you, Mia. Chloe was just... She was young, exciting, not tied down with all these family obligations your mother keeps pushing on us. He flinched. That's not fair. Neither is making me play nursemaid while you're texting your girlfriend from your hospital bed. His eyes widened. What? I held up his phone again. Missing you already, baby. Hope the pain meds aren't too strong. We need to talk about our plans. I checked the timestamp. Sent 2 hours ago. She doesn't know about the paralysis yet, does she? Ryan's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. I wonder how she'll feel about those plans now. I moved toward the door. I guess you'll find out, unless she blocks your number like she did mine after our chat. Mia, wait. His voice was desperate now. What are you going to do? I paused with my hand on the doorknob. Nothing. I'm going to do absolutely nothing. I'm going to watch while you explain to your mother why her perfect son isn't so perfect. I'm going to listen while you tell Chloe why those Miami plans are canceled, and then I'm going to walk away. You can't just leave. I need you. No, what you need is a good lawyer. I'll have mine contact yours once you're feeling better. The monitor beside his bed started beeping faster. You're talking about divorce? Now, after everything we've built? Everything we've built? I turned back one last time. You built a fantasy, Ryan. With her, with me, with your whole life. And now it's crumbling. I'm just choosing not to be buried in the rubble. I opened the door to find Linda standing there, her face white with shock. She must have heard everything. Behind me, Ryan was calling my name, his voice rising with panic. I walked past Linda without a word, her perfectly manicured hand flying to her mouth as I passed. Let her deal with the mess her son had made. I had my own life to rebuild. The hospital corridors had never felt so wide, so full of possibility. Each step took me further from the lies, from the pretense, from the life I thought I wanted. I didn't look back. Samantha's studio apartment smelled like coffee and turpentine. I sat cross-legged on her paint-splattered couch, watching her pace between her easel and the window, her dark curls wild with fury. He did what? She stopped mid-stride, coffee mug frozen halfway to her lips. Transferred most of our savings. My voice sounded hollow, even to me. The account's nearly empty. He must have done it right after I left the hospital. That bastard. She set her mug down with enough force to slosh coffee onto her sketches. Can he even do that legally? It was a joint account. I pulled up the banking app, staring at the numbers that had shattered my morning. Technically, he had every right. Right? She snorted. What about what's right for you? What are you going to do now? The question hung in the air like smoke. What was I going to do? The house payment was due next week. Linda had already left 3 voicemails about Ryan's upcoming physical therapy sessions. The walls were closing in, and my safety net had just been yanked away. My phone buzzed. Another text from Tom. Need to talk? Important. I should go, I said, standing. Tom wants to meet. Samantha grabbed my arm. Wait, there's something you should know. She hesitated, chewing her lip. I saw Chloe yesterday, at Bright Tech. My stomach lurched. What? She wasn't alone. She was with Jeffrey Palmer. Ryan's boss? Samantha nodded. They looked close, very close. The pieces clicked together like a poison puzzle. The Seattle job, the sudden promotion Ryan had mentioned months ago, the late-night strategy meetings. How long were you watching them? Long enough to see them leave together, and long enough to overhear something about offshore accounts. The room tilted sideways. Ryan's voice echoed in my head. The company's going through some changes. Big opportunities coming up. My phone buzzed again. Tom, found something you need to see. I have to go. I grabbed my bag, my mind racing. But I need a favor first. Anything. Can you get into Bright Tech's system? You did their website design last year, right? She smiled slowly, already moving toward her computer. Give me an hour. Tom was waiting at our usual spot, a quiet corner of the park where he walked his dog every afternoon. Today, he was alone, holding a thick manila envelope. Linda doesn't know I'm here, he said as I approached. And she can't know about this. He handed me the envelope. Inside were bank statements, emails, and photographs. Lots of photographs. Not just of Ryan and Chloe, but of meetings, handshakes, wire transfers, a paper trail of betrayal that went far beyond a simple affair. How long have you known? I asked. About the affair? Weeks? About this? He gestured to the envelope. Since yesterday. Found these in Ryan's home office when we were gathering his things. Does he know you have them? Tom shook his head. But he will soon. Linda's planning to bring more of his work files to the hospital tomorrow. I thought of the empty bank account, of Chloe with Jeffrey Palmer, of all the pieces falling into perfect, terrible place. I need to make some calls, I said, already turning away. Mia. Tom's voice stopped me. Whatever you're planning, be careful. Ryan's not the only one with something to lose. I looked back at him, this man who'd been more father to me than father-in-law. I'm already losing everything. Might as well make it count. My phone buzzed one last time as I walked away. Samantha had sent a single message. You're going to want to see this. I smiled, feeling the weight of the envelope in my bag. Ryan thought he'd left me powerless, penniless, trapped. He'd forgotten one thing. I had nothing left to lose. And sometimes that's the most dangerous position of all. Tomorrow Linda would bring Ryan his files. Tomorrow he'd realize what was missing. Tomorrow the real game would begin. But tonight I had work to do. The documents from Tom and Samantha's findings spread across my kitchen table like a map of betrayal. Each piece told its own story. Offshore accounts, falsified contracts, corporate kickbacks. Ryan hadn't just been unfaithful. He'd been running a sophisticated fraud scheme with Jeffrey Palmer, using Chloe as their unwitting courier. My phone lit up with Linda's name for the 10th time today. I let it ring. The doorbell chimed instead. Through the peephole, I saw Chloe herself, shifting nervously on my doorstep. My fingers curled into fists, but I opened the door anyway. I know you hate me, she said quickly, but there's something you need to know. I stepped aside, letting her enter. She looked smaller in person, younger, scared. Jeffrey knows about the files, she said, perching on the edge of my couch. He's already started moving money. By tomorrow there won't be any trace. How convenient for them. I remained standing, watching her fidget. And you're telling me this because? Because I didn't know. Her voice cracked. About you, about the fraud, about any of it. Ryan said he was separated. Jeffrey promised the transfers were legitimate business expenses. And you believed them. I was stupid. She pulled out her phone, hands trembling. But I'm not stupid anymore. Look. She showed me emails, screenshots, recorded conversations, evidence that made Tom's documents look like child's play. Why are you really here, Chloe? They're planning to pin everything on me. Her eyes welled up. The transfers, the fake contracts, all of it. Jeffrey's already planted documents with my signature. Ryan's going to claim I manipulated company records to embezzle funds. I laughed, harsh and hollow. And now you want my help? I want justice. She stood up, suddenly fierce. They used us both, Mia. Made us think we were special while they turned us into pawns. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here we were, the wife and the mistress, united by the same betrayal. My phone buzzed again, a text from Samantha. SEC filing deadline tomorrow, Palmer making his move. What exactly do you have? I asked Chloe. She pulled out a USB drive. Everything. Account numbers, dates, recordings. Enough to bury them both. I thought of the empty bank account, of Linda's desperate calls, of Tom's warning about being careful. Then I thought of Ryan in his hospital bed, still trying to manipulate everyone around him. If we do this, I said slowly, there's no going back. Not for any of us. I know. She set the drive on my table, next to Tom's documents. But I'd rather go down fighting than let them sacrifice me to save themselves. My phone lit up again. Tom this time. Linda found the missing files. She's heading to the hospital now. The clock was ticking. Once Linda delivered those files, Ryan would know what was missing. He'd realize what we had, what we could prove. We have until morning, I told Chloe. After that, the money disappears and their story about you becomes official. She nodded, understanding the stakes. What's the play? I gathered the documents, adding her drive to the pile. First, we visit my lawyer. Then we make some calls. SEC, FBI, anyone who might be interested in corporate fraud. They'll destroy us, she whispered. No, I corrected her, feeling strangely calm. They'll try, but they forgot something important. What's that? I picked up my phone, dialing Samantha's number. They taught us how to play their game. Now it's our turn to change the rules. As I outlined our plan to Samantha, I watched Chloe's expression shift from fear to determination. We were an unlikely alliance, brought together by the same men who'd tried to tear us apart. Tomorrow, Ryan would learn exactly what it meant to underestimate the women he'd betrayed. Tomorrow, we'd show him that revenge wasn't just about getting even. It was about getting smart, and we were done playing nice. The hospital corridor stretched before me like a gauntlet. 2 FBI agents flanked me, their presence both reassuring and terrifying. In my bag, the USB drive and documents felt like live ammunition. Remember, Agent Torres whispered. Get him talking. We need a confession. I nodded, touching the wire beneath my blouse. One shot at this. One chance to make it right. Linda intercepted us outside Ryan's room, her face a mask of fury. How dare you bring them here? He's recovering. Actually, Mrs. Walker, Agent Torres showed her badge. We're here about Bright Tech Solutions. Your son needs to answer some questions. This is your doing, Linda hissed at me. You vindictive little... That's enough. Tom appeared behind her, his hand firm on her shoulder. Let them pass. Ryan was sitting up in bed, scrolling through his phone. His face drained of color when he saw us. What's going on? We need to talk, I said, closing the door behind the agents. About Chloe, about the money, about everything. He laughed, but it was hollow. There's nothing to talk about. You're just bitter about the affair. Bitter? I pulled out Chloe's USB drive. Is that what you call 17 million in fraudulent transfers? His eyes locked onto the drive. Where did you get that? From the person you were planning to frame. I set it on his tray table. Chloe's been very helpful. You can't prove anything. Actually, Agent Torres stepped forward. We have everything we need. Ms. Anderson has already given her statement. Ryan's facade cracked. That stupid bitch. I told Jeffrey we couldn't trust her. We? I pressed, watching him realize his mistake. I mean, he stumbled, then his eyes narrowed. You're wearing a wire. Everything happened at once. Ryan lunged for the USB drive, knocking over his water pitcher. Linda screamed from the doorway. Tom moved to restrain her. It's over, I said, backing away as the agents moved in. The SEC has frozen the accounts. Jeffrey Palmer was arrested an hour ago. You don't understand. Ryan's voice cracked with desperation. I did it for us, for our future. No, I felt strangely calm. You did it for yourself, like everything else. Mom, he turned to Linda, tell them I wouldn't do this. Linda stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. Tom held her steady, his expression grim. Mrs. Walker, Agent Torres began reading Ryan his rights. Wait, Ryan called out. Mia, please, I'm paralyzed. You can't let them take me. I thought of all the nights I'd spent crying over him, all the lies I'd believed. You should have thought of that before you tried to destroy Chloe's life to save yourself. That's what this is about? Her? His laugh turned ugly. She meant nothing, less than nothing. And that's exactly what you meant to me. I turned to leave, but his words stopped me. If you do this, you'll have nothing. I emptied our accounts, remember? You'll be broke, alone. Actually, Tom spoke up, I've already transferred everything back, plus interest. He met Ryan's shocked stare. Did you really think I wouldn't notice you using my old passwords to access the family trust? Linda gasped. Ryan's face contorted with rage. You helped her? Your own son? No. Tom cut him off. I helped justice, something you clearly never understood. As the agents prepared to transfer Ryan to custody, I felt a strange emptiness. This was my victory, my revenge, but it tasted like ash. Mia, Ryan called one last time, his voice small. I did love you, in my way. I paused at the door, looking back at the man I'd once built my life around. Your way wasn't enough. In the corridor, Linda slumped against the wall, sobbing. Tom stood beside her, looking years older. The agents conferred quietly about transport protocols. And me? I walked away, each step feeling heavier than the last. I'd won, but the cost was staggering. A marriage destroyed, a family shattered, lives forever changed. My phone buzzed, Samantha checking in. I ignored it, needing a moment to breathe, to process. Sometimes revenge doesn't feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like surviving a war, leaving you standing in the wreckage, wondering if the price of justice was worth the cost of peace. But at least I was still standing. The courthouse hallway felt like a funeral parlor. I sat on a hard wooden bench, watching Linda pace in her designer suit while Tom studied a water stain on the ceiling. 3 months since Ryan's arrest, and today would decide everything. My lawyer touched my arm. They're ready. Inside the courtroom, Ryan sat in his wheelchair, thinner now, prison pallor making him look older. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away. Behind him, Jeffrey Palmer's expensive legal team shuffled papers, their confidence cracking around the edges. The plea deal presentation began, a drone of legal terms until the prosecutor said, "The defendant has agreed to testify against Jeffrey Palmer in exchange for—" Wait, Ryan's voice cracked through the proceedings. "I need to say something first." The judge nodded, and Ryan wheeled himself forward. I gripped the edge of my seat, expecting another manipulation, another lie. "I've had time to think," he said, his voice hollow, "about choices, about consequences." He turned to face me, about how easy it is to destroy everything you claim to love. Linda made a small, broken sound. Tom's hand found hers. "The money wasn't just about greed," Ryan continued. "It was about power, control. I thought if I had enough of both, I could keep everything. The perfect wife, the perfect mistress, the perfect life." He laughed bitterly. "Instead, I lost it all." "Your Honor," Palmer's lawyer started to object. "Let him finish," the judge ordered. "Mia." Ryan's eyes found mine again. "You weren't supposed to be strong enough to leave. Chloe wasn't supposed to be smart enough to keep records. We underestimated you both, and that was our biggest mistake." Palmer stood up, face red. "Ryan, shut up." "No." Ryan's voice strengthened. "I'm done covering for you. Done pretending this was anything but what it was. Fraud, manipulation, betrayal." He looked at the judge. "I have additional evidence. Things I kept back. Insurance, I thought, but now—" He glanced at me again. "Now I know it's time for the whole truth." The courtroom erupted. Palmer's lawyers huddled in panic, the prosecutor quickly conferring with her team. Through it all, I sat perfectly still, watching my husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, demolish the last bridges of his old life. During the recess, I found myself in the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. The door opened behind me. Chloe. "I didn't expect him to break," she said softly. "Neither did I." I turned to face her. "You're testifying tomorrow?" She nodded. "Palmer's lawyers tried to buy me off. Offered twice what Ryan promised for Seattle. And," a small, fierce smile, "I told them to shove it." We shared a moment of understanding, two women who'd learned the hard way that some prices were too high to pay. Back in the courtroom, the plea deal was revised. Ryan's sentence reduced in exchange for full cooperation. Palmer led away in handcuffs, his empire crumbling in real time. Linda caught me before I could leave. "He did it for you, you know. Confessing. Trying to make things right." "No," I corrected her gently. "He did it because he finally ran out of lies." "What will you do now?" I thought about the accounting classes I'd started, about the small apartment I'd rented, about the future stretching out before me, uncertain but mine. "Live," I answered simply. Outside, Tom waited by his car. "Need a ride?" "No thanks. Samantha's picking me up." I hesitated. "Thank you, though. For everything." He nodded, understanding all I wasn't saying. "You know, revenge isn't always about destroying someone else. Sometimes it's about rebuilding yourself. As I watched him drive away with Linda, I realized he was right. My revenge hadn't been the FBI raid or the plea deal, or even Ryan's confession. It had been the moment I chose myself over the comfortable lies of my marriage. Samantha's car pulled up, music spilling out as she opened the door. Ready? I looked back at the courthouse one last time, at the life I was leaving behind. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. The rehabilitation center's garden was quiet in the morning light. I watched through the window as Ryan worked with his physical therapist, his movements determined but strained. This would be the last time I'd see him. The divorce papers waited in my car, freshly signed. Footsteps approached behind me. Tom. Didn't expect to find you here, he said, joining me at the window. Neither did I. I turned away from Ryan's struggling figure. I came to give these to Linda. I patted my bag containing the divorce documents. She insisted on being the messenger, always trying to control the narrative. Tom's smile was tired but knowing. She's in the cafeteria, practicing what she'll say to him. A nurse wheeled past with supplies, nodding to us both. Through the glass, Ryan's therapist helped him stand, his legs shaking with effort. You know, Tom said quietly, he asked about your accounting classes. Linda told him? No. He saw the tuition payment from the joint account before it was closed. He paused. Said it made sense. You always were better with numbers than he was. The irony wasn't lost on me. All those years managing our household finances while Ryan and Palmer played their games with millions. I got the job, I said suddenly, at Harrison and Mills, junior accountant starting next month. Congratulations. His voice was warm, though I suspect they're the lucky ones. Linda appeared around the corner, her heels clicking sharply against the linoleum. She stopped short when she saw me. Oh. Her hand fluttered to her throat. I thought you were just dropping off the papers. I am. I reached into my bag, but she held up her hand. Wait, there's something you should know. She glanced at Tom, who nodded slightly. Ryan's starting a peer support group here, for other patients dealing with similar situations. Similar situations? Men who lost everything through their own actions, Tom clarified. His idea. The therapists think it might help. Through the window, Ryan had progressed to the parallel bars. His face showed concentration, not the smooth charm I'd once fallen for. Good for him, I said, and meant it. Linda took the envelope, her fingers trembling slightly. I never apologized. For how I treated you, for not seeing... Don't. I touched her arm briefly. We all believed what we wanted to believe. She nodded, tears threatening her perfect makeup. Will you ever forgive him? I already have. The truth of it surprised me. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or staying. As if hearing us, Ryan looked up through the window. Our eyes met, and for a moment I saw everything we'd been, everything we'd lost. He nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement, perhaps even understanding. I turned to leave, but Tom's voice stopped me. The trust fund, he said. The one Ryan tried to access. I've restructured it. Oh? Half will go to Ryan's care. The other half? He smiled. Let's call it an investment in a promising young accountant's future. Tom, I can't. You can, and you will. His tone brooked no argument. Consider it compensation for services rendered. After all, you did expose a major financial fraud. Linda made a small sound of protest, but didn't argue. I hugged Tom, brief but fierce, then walked away. Through the center's glass doors, past the wheelchair ramp where my story with Ryan had shifted so dramatically, into the bright morning light. My phone buzzed, Samantha reminding me about apartment hunting later. Next to her message was an email from Chloe, now working at a startup in Seattle. You should see the compliance protocols I've implemented here, she wrote. No one's getting away with anything. I smiled, starting my car. The divorce papers would reach Ryan soon, but they weren't an ending. Not really. They were proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's life. Sometimes it's about rebuilding your own, stronger than before. In my rearview mirror, the rehabilitation center grew smaller, taking with it the last pieces of the life I'd planned. Ahead lay the life I'd chosen instead. I drove toward it without looking back,